The chief goal of every church member and of this church is to win souls.
Hlavným cieľom každého zboru je získavať ľudí pre Krista.
Matthew 28, last two verses.
Matúš 28, posledné dva verše.
Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you, and lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world.
Choďte teda a získavajte mi učeníkov vo všetkých národoch a krstite ich v mene Otca i Syna i Svätého Ducha. A naučte ich zachovávať všetko, čo som vám prikázal. Hľa, ja som s vami po všetky dni až do konca sveta.
What I want to emphasize, I will be with you always.
Na čo chcem dávať prízvuk je, že budem s vami až do konca.
If we're doing soul winning, God will be with us.
Keď budeme získavať ľudí pre Krista, on bude s nami.
And I want to tell you how I know God was with me.
A ja vám chcem porozprávať, ako viem, že Boh bol so mnou.
I got so many stories to tell you.
Mám veľa príbehov, ktoré by som vám mohol porozprávať.
I was over in Taiwan.
Raz som bol v Tajvane.
I was a military advisor to the Chinese Medical Corps.
Bol som vojenským poradcom pre Chinese what?
Medical.
Pre čínskych zdravotníkov.
Now, I'll tell you how I got there.
A poviem vám, ako som sa tam dostal.
The army put me through medicine. Paid all my bills.
Armáda ma vlastne vyškolila a platila všetky školné na medicíne.
So I had to do 2 years in the army.
Takže ako revanš musel som odpracovať 2 roky v armáde.
1 year in the US, 1 year overseas.
Raz 1 rok v Spojených štátoch a 1 rok v zahraničí.
They sent the doctors either to Germany or Taiwan.
No a buď posielali vtedy vojakov do Nemecka alebo do Tajvanu.
The medical officer who decided which way you go was a graduate from Loma Linda University.
Úradník, doktor, ktorý rozhodoval, že kto kam pôjde, bol bývalým študentom Loma Lindy univerzity.
He was not an Adventist.
Nebol adventista,
but he was head of the Alumni Association 2 years in a row.
Ale bol hlavným predstaviteľom ukončených študentov, teda skupiny ukončených študentov práve v Loma Linde.
I knew where he lived in Tacoma Park, Maryland.
Viem, kde presne býval, v tom byte.
So one Sunday morning I knocked on his door.
Raz v nedeľu ráno som zaklopal na jeho dvere.
I said, I speak a little Chinese, I'd like to go to Taiwan.
Viem trošku čínsky, rád by som išiel do Tajvanu.
He says, no problem, I'll fix that up.
Není problém, zabezpečím.
So I got sent to Taiwan.
A tak som bol poslaný do Tajvanu.
And while I was in Taiwan,
a keď som bol v Tajvane,
there was a Taiwanese boy who is going through the Bible correspondence lessons.
A v tom čase tam bol chalan, ktorý práve študoval korešpondenčne Bibliu.
His name was Nathaniel Yen.
Jeho meno bolo Nathaniel Yen.
Now after he got through once, he went through it the second time.
A keď prešiel raz tým kurzom, tak ešte raz ho zopakoval.
But he wanted to be sure, so he went through it the third time.
Ale chcel si byť istý, že tomu rozumie, tak ešte raz si to zopakoval ten kurz.
So he became an Adventist. He was baptized.
A potom sa až stal adventistom, bol pokrstený.
And every young boy has to go in the army for 4 months.
A každý mladý muž musí ísť na vojnu na 4 mesiace.
His officer tried to help him when he talked to him about the Sabbath.
Jeho nadriadený sa snažil nejako pomáhať, keď prišlo na problém so sobotou.
He said, we'll let you go with 2 other people every Sabbath out the gate, and you can be with the people who are buying the food for the company, but you can take your Bible and go over the hill.
Takže chcel mu pomôcť, takže mu povedal, že keď pôjdete vonku s inými vojakmi nakupovať potraviny a riešiť biznis, tak ty si môžeš zobrať svoju Bibliu a ísť na kopce.
After sundown you can come back.
No a keď sa zotmie, po západe sa môžeš vrátiť.
But we will have on the record that you were with the 2 men who were buying the food.
Ale ty budeš na zozname figurovať ako ten, ktorý bol s mužmi, ktorí nakupovali jedlo.
Oh, no, I don't want any record to show I was working on Sabbath.
Nie, ja nechcem žiaden záznam, že som pracoval v sobotu.
Now, some of our General Conference brethren thought he was too strict.
A niektorí bratia z generálnej konferencie si myslia, že bol veľmi prísny.
But he did not accept the offer, so he went to jail.
ale neprijal tú ponuku a tak išiel do väzenia.
By this time, his sister had become an Adventist.
V tom čase sa jeho sestra stala adventistkou,
She had a little baby.
mala malé dieťa,
She knew where her brother was on the second floor.
vedela, kde je vlastne jej brat na druhom poschodí.
She went down by his window and talked to her baby.
A tak išla k tej väznici a dole pod tými oknami rozprávala k dieťaťu.
When you grow up, be like Daniel.
Keď vyrastieš, buď ako Daniel.
And her brother would hear it.
A jej brat to počul.
But her brother got so sick from diarrhea.
Ale jej brat sa stal veľmi chorým, lebo ho preháňalo.
They thought he was going to die.
Mysleli si, že zomrie.
So they sent him home, but he had to report once a week.
No a tak ho poslali domov, ale musel dávať správu o sebe každý týždeň.
Now there was an attorney down there in the army.
Ale bol tam jeden advokát,
And the attorney said he was going to put Yen in jail for the rest of his life.
a ten tvrdil, že urobí všetko preto, aby do konca života bol vo väzení. Ten Yen.
So I got a call from Pastor Christensen in Tainan.
A tak som dostal telefonát od pastora.
Since you're an advisor to the American or to the Taiwanese army, can you come and help us?
Keďže ty si poradca pre tajvanskú armádu, môžeš prísť a pomôcť nám s týmto?
Yes, I could, but I can't come in the middle of the week. I have to be with my troops.
Ale môžem, áno, ale nemôžem prísť v strede týždňa, lebo musím byť so svojou
I could come
skupinou.
either the first or the last part.
Môžem prísť len na začiatku týždňa alebo na konci.
Well, you better come at the end because the attorney has gone to Taipei to see the chief attorney to see if he could put him in jail for the rest of his life.
Príď radšej koncom týždňa, lebo ten prokurátor ide navštíviť toho najhlavnejšieho prokurátora, aby sa poradili, ako ho dostať do väzenia na celý život.
So it came Thursday.
A tak prišiel štvrtok.
I got on a train.
Dostal som sa na vlak.
I went halfway down to Tainan.
Takže išiel som asi polovičku cestu.
I got off at a town, Jiayi.
Prišiel som do mesta Jiayi.
Inspected an Air Force hospital. Chinese.
A hľadal som tú nemocnicu letectva.
It was about 10 o'clock at night.
Bolo to asi 10 hodín večer.
The Chinese officers were taking me to a hotel.
A tí čínsky úradníci, teda predstavení armády, mali akurát večeru.
I had a strong impression I should go on that same night.
A tak mal som také silné cítenie, že mám ísť aj ja v ten večer.
So I said to the officers, take me to the railroad station.
A tak mi povedal som, že zoberte ma na stanicu vedľa
Oh
rieky.
no Chinese goes this late at night.
Ale žiadny Číňan tam nechodí ani tak neskoro večer. Nechod tam.
But the impression was strong, I should go.
Ale to cítenie bolo tak silné, že jednoducho som musel ísť.
So I went.
Tak som išiel.
I was the only one at the railroad station. I bought my ticket and I was the only one there waiting for the train.
A bol som jediný, kto si kúpil lístok, som bol jediný na stanici, ktorý cestoval.
I was hoping to get on a car where there was not much smoking.
A dúfal som, že pôjdem do vagóna, kde sa veľa nefajčí.
Now one car, the steps to that car stopped exactly right in front of me.
A predo mnou zastal akurát jeden vagón, ale presne predo mnou zastal.
Naturally, I got on there.
Tak prirodzene som vstúpil
Only
do neho.
6 people in the car, 6 soldiers.
Iba 6 vojakov bolo v tom vagóne.
I had thought to myself I would not speak any Chinese. I knew Chinese, but I wasn't going to speak any.
Vedel som čínsky, ale povedal som si, že nebudem rozprávať čínsky.
Because somebody from that lawyer's office might be in that car and hear me, and I was planning to go there and pretend I didn't know any Chinese and hear what they said.
Takže myslel som si, že môže tam byť aj niekto, kto bude na tom súde, a preto som sa rozhodol, že nebudem rozprávať čínsky.
But there was a major, short, stocky, chubby fella. He smiled at me, so nice. I said, I must sit down across from him.
Ale bol tam jeden major, ktorý sa na mňa díval a mal veľký úsmev, tak som si povedal, musím si sadnúť oproti nemu.
So he began to talk to me in Chinese.
A tak začal na mňa hovoriť čínsky.
Are you going to Tainan?
Idete do Tainanu?
I answered yes in Chinese.
A on povedal áno po čínsky.
Are you going to stay in a Chinese hostel?
Hostel?
Hostel, hotel.
A zostanete v nejakom hosteli čínskom?
I said no.
Povedal som nie.
You going to stay in an American hotel?
Budem v americkom hoteli.
I said, no.
Teda budete v americkom hoteli? Nie, nebudem.
Are you going to stay with American missionary friends?
Zostanete s americkým misionárnym kamarátom, priateľom?
I said, yes.
Áno, zostanem.
Suddenly I thought to myself,
Zrazu som si pomyslel,
this man knows I know Chinese.
ten muž vie, že viem čínsky
I'm answering his questions.
a ja odpovedám na jeho otázky.
So my whole plan went out the window.
Takže celý môj plán vyletel do
I
vzduchu.
began to talk to him.
A tak som sa začal s ním rozprávať.
You know who he was?
Viete, kto to bol?
He was the attorney coming down from seeing the top attorney in Taipei. He was on his way back home.
Bol to akurát ten prokurátor, ktorý sa vracal od toho hlavného prokurátora z hlavného mesta naspäť.
He was the man I was coming to see.
Bol to práve ten muž, ktorého som išiel pozrieť.
He said he had permission to put Yen in jail the rest of his life.
Že povedal, že má povolenie na to, aby mohol dať toho Jena do väzenia na konca života.
And he knew what I was coming for.
A on vedel, odkiaľ ja pochádzam.
We made an official appointment to meet each other officially the next day.
Takže hneď sme si dohodli oficiálne stretnutie na druhý deň.
Well, he hadn't had a court trial yet. So they had a court trial.
Ten súd ešte neprebehol.
They said he hadn't done anything wrong.
A keď ten súd tam bol teda neskôr, tak povedal, že nič zle neurobil.
But he hadn't served his 4 months in the army.
Ale neodslúžil si tie 4 mesiace v armáde.
So he had to go back in the army.
Takže musel sa vrátiť naspäť do armády.
Now this attorney went out to see how he was getting along.
A ten prokurátor chcel vedieť, ako v tej armáde funguje.
And his commanding officer said he's one of the best soldiers we have.
A jeho veliteľ povedal, že toto je jeden z najlepších vojakov, ktorých mal.
But he's got a most peculiar illness.
Ale má veľmi zvláštnu chorobu.
He's sick every 7th day of the week.
Je chorý každý 7. deň v týždni.
That was the Chinese way of saying we're letting him off on Sabbath.
To bol čínsky spôsob toho, že odchádzal na sobotu preč.
So he eventually got out of the military.
A dostal sa naspäť von z armády po času.
Married the girl who looked over his Bible correspondence lessons 3 times.
Oženil sa s dievčinou, ktorá vlastne dohliadala na jeho 3 kurzy biblické.
Learned English well.
Naučil sa veľmi dobre anglicky.
Got his master's in theology in the U.S.
V Spojených štátoch získal doktorát z teológie.
Became a good evangelist.
Stal sa veľmi dobrým evangelistom.
He was president of the conference over in Hong Kong.
Stal sa prezidentom konferencie v Hongkongu.
A very good man.
Veľmi dobrý muž.
Now tell me,
A teraz mi povedzte,
was that accident that I met that man?
bola to náhoda, že stretol tam toho muža vo vlaku?
Or was God involved in that?
Alebo Boh bol v tom zahrnutý nejakým spôsobom?
I knew God did that.
Ja viem, že to Pán Boh
He
urobil.
changed my whole plan.
Zmenil úplne celý môj plán.
Let me tell you another story.
Dovolte mi povedať vám ďalší príbeh.
I was going to the Philippines
Išiel som do Filipín.
with Story Proctor from the General Conference.
With what?
With Story Proctor, another man.
So Strojom Parkerom, s iným mužom z generálnej konferencie.
We were to teach everybody in the division how to do vegetarian cooking school.
V divízii sme mali vyučovať, ako je dobré robiť, vegetariánske kurzy varenia.
But at that time in the Philippines, there were some very conservative Adventist people.
Ale v tom čase na Filipínach boli veľmi konzervatívni adventisti.
They knew the conference president ate meat.
Vedeli, že predseda konferencie je mäso.
And so they were telling everybody, don't go to the Adventist church, come to our home. We'll have church at our home.
A tak hovorili, že nechoďte do adventistického zboru, ale príďte radšej k nám domov a v dome budeme mať pobožnosť.
Story Proctor wasn't well that Friday night. He said, John, you're going to talk to them the 3 hours tonight.
Stroj Parker nebol nadšený z toho, tak im hovoril, že dneska s nimi budeš musieť aspoň 3 hodiny rozprávať.
The conference medical director
konferenčný riaditeľ medicíny
Abraham Carpina,
Abraham Carpina,
he came to me.
prišiel za mnou.
The division leaders want to know what you're going to say about the meat.
Divízni predstavitelia chcú vedieť, čo budeš rozprávať o mese.
Are you going to support these people who are saying don't go to the Adventist church?
Budeš podporovať tých ľudí a hovoriť im, aby nešli do adventistického zboru?
You have 3 hours tonight. You got to answer that question.
Máš na to 3 hodiny, musíš odpovedať na túto otázku.
I didn't have the least idea what to say.
Vôbec som nemal ani predstavu, čo mám povedať.
But I picked up my book, Counsels on Diet and Food.
Ale zobral som si knihu svoju, Rady o strave a pokrmoch.
Started thumbing through the pages.
Listoval som si pár strán.
I'd read it 100 times.
Čítal som to už 100-krát predtým.
I didn't expect to find anything new.
Nečakal som, že tam nájdem niečo nové.
I got to page 401.
A tak som prišiel na stranu 145.
And the Lord stopped my finger on one paragraph.
A zrazu mi spadol prst na jeden odstavec.
It told me everything I had to say that night.
A v tom odstavci bolo úplne napísané všetko, čo som mal povedať v ten večer.
Number 1.
Číslo 1.
Eating of meat was not a test of church fellowship.
Jedenie mäsa nie je testom toho, že či ste na vstup do zboru. Tak, do kostola.
Number 2. If a
Číslo 2.
prominent man is eating meat, he shouldn't broadcast it. He shouldn't tell everybody. If some important man was eating meat, he shouldn't tell everybody.
Ak niektorý z dôležitých mužov jedáva mäso, nemal by to každému rozprávať.
And he shouldn't speak against the vegetarian diet.
A nemal by rozprávať proti vegetariánskej strave.
Third principle.
Tretí princíp.
God is calling for his church members to become vegetarian.
Boh pozýva svojich členov v cirkvi, aby sa stali vegetariánmi.
I spent 3 hours talking to these 200 people, 98% of whom were not vegetarian.
Takže rozprával som 3 hodiny k ľuďom, ktorých 99% neboli vegetariáni.
Now, do you think it was the Lord that was involved in stopping my finger at that point?
Myslíte si, že to bol Pán, ktorý zastavil môj prst na tom
I haven't
paragrafe?
thought of a better answer.
Nemám lepšiu odpoveď.
You have to take the 3 principles and mesh them together. People are at different stages.
Máte tam 3 základné princípy a môžete to rozprávať ľuďom, ktorí sú v rôznych fázach.
Let me tell you another story.
Poviem vám ešte jeden príbeh.
I was in Nairobi,
Bol som v Nairobi,
Kenya,
v Kene,
and Dr. Paul Wangai, who had a master's degree in public health from Loma Linda,
a doktor Polaj, ktorý má master degree, má diplom z Loma Lindy univerzity vo verejnom zdraví.
he was director of the East African Division,
Bol predseda
the medical director.
východoafrickej divízie
He said health is doing so good at bringing people into the church.
a hovoril, že tá správa je tak dobrá, že ju treba priniesť celému ľudstvu.
We must demonstrate to all of our people how it does.
A musíme ukázať našim ľuďom, ako to treba robiť.
We must have a meeting with all the ministers from the division,
Musíme mať stretnutie so všetkými kazateľmi z divízie,
all the educators,
všetkými učiteľmi,
all the health workers,
všetkými zdravotníckymi pracovníkmi.
have a big evangelistic meeting and show them how it works.
Máme urobiť veľký evangelizačný meeting a ukázať im, ako to treba robiť.
It was going to cost $40,000 US.
Malo to stať 42 000 amerických dolárov.
He raised the money from the local businesses.
Z lokálnych obchodov alebo biznisov získal peniaze do dotácie.
But before the big evangelistic meeting happened, he had me come 10, 11 days before.
Ale predtým, ako začal ten meeting, tak 10-11 dní predtým ma poprosil, aby som prišiel.
Had me speak to about 11 different groups.
A nechal ma rozprávať asi 11 rôznym skupinám.
He had me speak to the biggest Baptist church.
Dokonca nechal ma aj rozprávať vo najväčšom baptistickom
The
zbore.
minister had just discovered in the Bible himself the Sabbath.
Ten kazateľ toho zboru práve v tom čase objavil sobotu v Biblii.
He had me talk to the Millionaires Club.
Umožnil mi, aby som rozprával pred klubom milionárov.
To be a member of that club, you had to be a millionaire before you were 30 years of age.
Na to, aby ste mohli byť členom toho klubu milionárov, musíte mať milión pred svojím 30. rokom.
He had me talk to all the workers in a hospital.
Takže nechal ma rozprávať pred všetkými tými pracovníkmi v nemocnici.
Every seat was filled.
Všetko bolo plné.
I still remember that the doctor came in and put a handkerchief on the floor and he sat down in the aisle because there was no seats.
Pamätám si, ako jeden doktor prišiel a dal si na zem vreckovku a sadol si, lebo už nebolo miesto, kde sedieť.
He had me talk to whole groups of soldiers.
Nechal ma rozprávať dokonca aj pred skupinou vojakov.
He said, don't say anything religious.
Nič náboženské nehovor.
You let me do that.
Nechaj, to ja s tou urobím ja.
He took everything I said on health and put it into an evangelistic appeal.
Tak všetko to, čo som ja mal, tie výzvy o zdraví, tak on z toho urobil tie evangelizačné výzvy.
I don't know how he was able to do this.
Neviem, ako to bol schopný urobiť.
We had a big meeting.
Mali sme obrovské jedno stretnutie.
We rented the biggest auditorium in the biggest hotel in town.
V tom najväčšom hoteli, v tom najväčšom auditoriu miestnosti sme zajednali miestnosť.
It was 6-night meeting.
Bolo to 6 nočných stretnutí, večerných stretnutí.
You had to have a coupon to get in.
A ak ste sa chceli dostať dovnútra, museli ste mať kupón.
You didn't have to pay, you had to ask for it.
Nemuseli ho platiť, ale bola to povinnosť. Bez kupónu.
No Adventist could get in unless he brought non-Adventists with him.
Takže žiadny adventista sa dovnútra nedostal, dokiaľ zo sebou nezobral neadventistu.
The place was packed.
A to miesto bolo zaplnené.
I had the first 2 nights of the 6 nights myself.
A pre mňa bolo vyhradené prvé 2 večery.
By the way, the 6 nights cost us $10,000 US.
Tých 10 večerov nastalo $10,000 amerických dolárov.
A wealthy man locally in the church paid for it.
Miestny bohatý človek z miestneho zboru to zaplatil.
Then last 4 nights, Walter Pearson, a black TV evangelist from the US, spoke.
A poslednú noc v ňom rozprával jeden afroamerický evangelista z televízie.
But he had me give a health talk just before his sermon.
Ale tesne pred jeho kázňou mi umožnil, aby som rozprával o zdraví.
When we got done, 100 people joined the baptismal class.
Keď sme skončili, 100 ľudí pokračovalo v štúdiu pred krstom.
A young Muslim was baptized.
Mladý muž, moslim, bol krstený tiež.
He began to preach in the mosque.
V mešitách začal kázať ten mladý muž.
Pretty soon they thought he wasn't preaching just straight Muslim religion.
Predtým si mysleli, že len káže nejaké zvláštne moslimské náboženstvo.
So they decided to assassinate him.
Tak sa rozhodli, že ho zabijú.
A young man was to stand up and speak against him publicly.
A mladý muž
just talk against him.
Takže k verejnému zhromaždeniu hovoril, áno.
That was the signal for the sheikhs to take the hand grenades from their big white gowns out and throw them at him and kill him.
Takže keď nejaký mladý muž k nemu prehovoril verejne na tom stretnutí, keď on rozprával, tak to bolo znamenie pre tých šejkov, že ho majú zabiť.
The boy stood up to revile him, opened his mouth.
Takže ten chlapec sa postavil, otvoril ústa, aby ho odhalil.
And his jaw got dislocated.
A jeho čelusť sa vyklbila v tom okamžiku.
He couldn't talk.
Nemohol rozprávať.
His father thought he was going to die because he couldn't eat.
Jeho otec si myslel, že zomre, pretože ani jesť nemohol.
So he brought him to our converted Muslim
Tak,
to have him pray for him.
Tak ho doviedli k tomu obrátenému moslimovi, aby sa za ňo modlil.
He prayed for him.
A tak sa za ňo modlil.
His jaw flipped back in place.
A zrazu tá jeho čelusť sa vrátila naspäť na miesto.
But this young Muslim who was baptized,
ten mladý moslim, ktorý bol
his
krstený,
father got him in his father's tent on the floor to kill him with a knife.
Raz prišiel do stanu a chcel ho zabiť nejaký otec,
He had his knife in his hand.
A už mal nôž nad ním.
When his 2 brothers came in,
keď akurát sa vrátili jeho 2 bratia,
they said, we can't kill one of our own.
A povedali, že my nemôžeme zabiť jedného z nás.
They took the knife from the father's hand.
Tak zobrali nôž toho otca.
And said, we'll just gouge out his eyes so he can't read the scripture.
A povedali, že len mu vylúpnú oči, aby nemohol čítať Božie slovo.
And boom, one eye pops out.
A pichli, jedno oko prasklo.
He screamed, he jumped up and got away.
Začal kričať, vyskočil a ušiel odtiaľ.
It's quite a story.
To je príbeh.
He has been in charge of our Muslim Bible correspondence school ever since.
Odvtedy sa stal aj predsedom biblického korešpondenčného kurzu určeného pre
He's
moslimov.
done more good for our church in showing us how to reach Muslims.
Veľké dobro urobil práve pre našu cirkev a ukázal, akým spôsobom sa dajú evangelizovať moslimovia.
Now, do you think that boy's jaw got dislocated just coincidentally?
Myslíte si, že tá čelusť toho chlapca sa vyklbila len tak náhodou?
Or do you think God did it?
Alebo si myslíte, že to urobil Pán Boh?
I can tell you story after story like this that happened.
Môžem vám rozprávať príbeh za príbehov, ktoré sa týmto spôsobom stali.
Let me tell you another story.
Ďalší príbeh.
I'm so excited when I knew God was with me.
Bol som veľmi nadšený, keď som vedel, že Pán Boh je so mnou.
Our group that had this evangelistic meeting
Jedna skupina, ktorá viedla evangelistické
moved
stretnutie,
from Nairobi down to Botswana.
Išla z Nairobi do Botswany.
Okay.
Botswany.
And we had 3 days to talk to all the members of parliament.
A mali sme možnosť 3 dní rozprávať pred parlamentom.
To make a long story short, 4 cabinet ministers were baptized as Seventh-day Adventists.
4 z nich boli potom krstení ako adventisti 7. dňa.
It was kind of exciting. We have a little hospital there.
Mali sme tam jednu malú nemocnicu.
90% of the children that are born
90% detí, ktoré sa narodili,
have no father in their home when they're born.
nemali otca v čase, keď sa narodili.
We talked to our central church people.
Rozprávali sme s centrálnym zborom
And
našim.
Dr. Wangai, I preached, of course, on the nutrition,
Samozrejme, že ja som mal tú správu o výžive,
but Dr. Wangai talked about tithe paying.
ale doktor Wangan rozprával o
Tithe paying, pay tithe every month.
o desiatkoch.
He, in his church that he started in Nairobi, 89% of the church members paid tithe.
A v mieste, kde on bol kazateľom, 85% členov platilo
In
desiatky.
this church, in the capital of Botswana, only 30% were paying tithe.
V tom zbore v Botswane iba 30% ľudí.
So he preached about tithe paying and had them stand to promise to pay tithe.
A tak kázal o desiatkoch a vyzval ich, aby povstali, že slúbia, že budú tie desiatky odvádzať.
The mission president, the conference president, one guy, they both supported me in promoting the vegetarian diet.
Takže aj ten misionársky kazateľ, aj teda predseda nejakej divízie, oni obidvaja podporovali, aby on niesol tú správu, tú zdravotnú správu.
We had a couple from South Africa.
Mali sme jeden pár zo Južnej
He was a
Afriky,
builder,
bol to stavbár,
and he was building a new church in what they call Freedom Square, which is a politically beautiful place.
a staval kostol, ktorý sa nazýval Slobodná budova.
It was a higher class church.
A bol to kostol, ktorý bol také na veľmi vysokej úrovni.
They even had restrooms inside.
Dokonca
That's unusual.
mali aj záchod vo vnútri, čo vtedy bolo nezvyčajné.
Preparing for these new people,
About-
parliament level, to come in.
A bolo to pripravené práve pre ľudí, nových ľudí, ktorí mali prísť z toho parlamentu.
We pled with our church members of the Central Church. How can you expect parliament people to come in if you're not living up to the message you know?
A tak sme vyzývali miestnych v zbore, aby sa zamysleli, že ako chcú prijať tých vysoko postavených ľudí, keď oni sami nežijú podľa toho, ako by mali.
I know the Lord was in that.
Vedel som, že Pán Boh je s nami vtedy.
I have to tell you again another story about Taiwan.
A poviem vám ešte jeden príbeh z Tajvanu.
I was in the military.
Bol som ako vojak
I had to take care of the other advisors and their families.
a musel som sa starať o ďalších poradcov a ich rodiny.
When one of our military men's wives got pregnant when she's due to deliver, I was to get a plane out from the Chinese and take her to Taipei to deliver.
OK, takže ak niektorá z nich, z tých vojakov, žena otehotnela a už bol čas pôrodu, tak ja som mal vybaviť lietadlo, aby odletelo do Tajvanu, into Taiwan.
Taipei.
Taipei. Aha, do mesta Taipei, aby tam vlastne prebehol pôrod.
I was in Taichung, middle of the island. Anyway, this English lady had married an American paratrooper.
Takže tá anglická pani sa vydala za vojaka, parašutistu.
She was pregnant.
Bola tehotná.
It was time to deliver.
Bol čas na to, aby už porodila.
I ordered out a Chinese transport plane.
Tak som zabezpečil čínske lietadlo.
We were on the runway, ready to take off.
A už akurát sme išli odpútať sa od zeme v tom lietadle.
When I called to the captain.
Keď som volal kapitánovi.
Too late.
Je neskoro.
We're going to have to deliver her here on the plane.
Musí pôrod prebehnúť tu na lietadle.
So we did.
Tak sme.
Little baby boy.
Bol to malý chlapec.
When they got out of the military,
keď odišli z armády,
they went to Florida to retire.
Išli na Floridu, aby tam mali dôchodok, na dôchodok.
The husband divorced his wife.
Rozviedli sa tí dvaja.
So she had to bring up this little boy by herself.
Takže musela vychovávať toho chlapca sama.
An elderly man next door was a Seventh-day Adventist.
Starší zboru, ktorý býval vedľa nej, bol adventista.
He took an interest in this boy.
Starší zboru, hej. Mal záujem o túto pani.
And one day the little boy came to his mother and said, that man next door is a Seventh-day Adventist.
A raz prišiel chalan domov a povedal mame, tento muž je z adventista 7. dňa.
She said, you come in here, I got something to tell you.
No poď sem, teda pozvala ho domov, musím ti niečo povedať.
You were delivered by a Seventh-day Adventist doctor.
Teba porodil adventista 7. dňa.
30 years goes by.
Takže 30 rokov prešlo.
I was preaching in the camp meetings, one camp meeting after another.
Kázal som na biblických týždňoch z jedného týždňa na druhý.
I got to Oklahoma.
A prišiel som aj do Oklahomy.
They asked me to have the devotionals every morning for the workers at the camp meeting.
Chceli, aby som tam robieval také ranné zamyslenia pre pracujúcich na tej biblickom týždni.
The second day,
druhý deň,
a man came to me.
Prišiel za mnou muž.
A minister.
Bol to kazateľ.
He said, did you ever deliver a baby on the airplane?
Povedal mi, že boli ste pri pôrode niekde, teda rodili ste niekedy dieťa na lietadle?
I thought for a minute, yes, once in Taiwan.
A vravím si, premýšľam, že áno, raz v Tajvane.
He said, I was the baby.
A povedal mi, ja som to dieťa.
The next day he brought his birth certificate with my signature.
Na druhý deň doniesol rodný list a s mojím podpisom na ňom.
A picture of the Chinese airplane, all the Chinese who are on the airplane, the pilot and all with their signatures.
Áno, obrázok s ľuďmi, ktorí boli na tom lietadle, aj s ich podpismi.
Now, how did he become an Adventist?
Ako sa on stal adventistom?
I don't know that I said anything.
Ja som nepovedal nič.
But you know with apostles.
Ale viete, apoštolov.
The people could tell they'd been with Jesus.
Poznáte apoštolov. Ľudia vedeli, že oni boli s Ježišom.
I think we as Adventists people can tell we've been with Jesus.
Ja si myslím, že aj o adventistov, teda ľudia o adventistov môžu povedať,
This man
že tento
became
bol s Ježišom.
conference president, Upper Columbia Conference.
Ten muž sa stal dokonca konferenčným prezidentom v Hornej.
The first day he was president, he gave his speech at camp meeting.
Prvýkrát, keď sa stal prezidentom, tak na biblickom týždni mal prejav.
Telling his life story.
A rozprával o svojom životnom príbehu.
He started off and said, I was born on an airplane delivered by Dr. John Scharffenberg.
A príbeh začal tým, že narodil som sa na lietadle a pri pôrode asistoval Dr. Scharffenberg.
There were two of my grandchildren sitting there. They never heard the story before and they were excited.
Boli tam dvaja z mojich vnukov, ktorí nikdy ten príbeh nepočuli.
Now, I know the Lord was in that.
A ja viem, že Pán Boh bol tam s nami.
I can't think of anything I said to them, but they attribute their coming into church because of me.
Ale oni vlastne sa rozhodli chodievať do zboru len vďaka tomu, že ma poznali.
I'm thinking of the midwife in Nairobi.
A premyšľam o stretnej žene z Nairobi.
She had become El-Hanif.
Midwife. Porodná asistentka. Porodnej asistentke z Nairobi.
You know what El-Hanif is?
Viete, čo je El-Nahif?
That's the worshiper of the one and only true God. True God. The one and only true God.
Že je to jediný a pravý Boh.
Advent started it.
začali tam
It's
adventisti.
like the Sunnis and the Shiites and all the other groups of Muslims.
A potom tam boli tí suniti a šíti.
Al-Hanif means they believe just like you and I do.
Al-Hanif
They're
znamená,
at Seventh-day Adventists, but Muslims,
že
in
oni,
the Muslim
že
sect.
oni veria presne takisto ako my, len sú muslimovia.
She had delivered all the babies in the village.
A ona vlastne bola porodnou asistentkou a asistovala pri všetkých pôrodoch
And
v dedine.
She would speak, but they didn't think she was speaking straight Muslim religion.
A ona rozprávala, ale niektorí si nemysleli, že má presne to práve moslimské učenie.
So these young boys that she had delivered
Takže tí deti, ktorých ona odrodila,
decided they should assassinate her.
sa rozhodli, že ju zabijú.
She had a large yard.
Mala veľký dvor,
She had a big wall about 4 feet high around
mala veľkú stenu,
with
asi
a wire gate.
2-metrovú, s nejakými wiregate. A bránou.
There's no electricity in the village.
A v dedine nebola žiadna elektrina.
So about 20 of these boys got up about 2 o'clock in the morning,
Asi 12 týchto chalanov o 2 ráno vstali
came to her house to
a
kill her.
prišli do jej domu, aby ju zabili.
They touched the gate.
A dotkli sa tej brány
They got a shot.
a dostali kopanec.
Sent them back.
A tak sa vrátili.
So they decided to go over the wall.
A tak sa rozhodli, že pôjdu cez stenu.
They touched the wall. They got a shock.
Dotkli sa steny a tiež dostali kopanec elektrický.
So they went back and told the chiefs of the village, the men.
A tak išli za predstaviteľom dediny a povedali mu.
About 4 o'clock in the morning, this lady got up to go out to the outhouse, the restroom outside.
Takže asi o 4 ráno tá pani vstala a išla vonku na vece.
The whole town was in front of the house, 4,000 people.
A 4,000 ľudí bolo pred jej domom. Celá dedina.
She says, what's going on?
Tak sa pýtala, čo sa deje?
They said, what kind of electrical power do you have? There's no electricity in the village.
V celej dedine nie je elektrina a odkiaľ máš ty elektrínu?
She touched the wall and the gate. She didn't get a shot.
Dotkla sa steny a žiaden kopanec, nič.
So one of the sheikhs, the leaders, touched the wall. He got a shock. He went back 6 feet. He was injured.
Jeden zo šejkov tiež prišiel k stene, dotkol sa steny, dostal kopanec, až ho odhodilo 2 metre dozadu.
So she began to think, the Lord's doing something special.
A tak začali premýšľať, že Boh robí niečo zvláštne.
So she went and opened the gate
Tak ona išla k bráne, aby otvorila
and let some of these young people and the elders come in.
a umožnila mladým ľuďom aj tým starším, aby vošli dovnútra
She explained to them what Al-Hanif was.
a vysvetlila im, čo El Hanif znamená.
They allowed her from then on to conduct meetings after the Muslims prayer group, have meetings there, and people from all over the area came to see this lady who had special electrical power.
Takže jej umožnili, aby po každom tom modlitevnom stretnutí mohla mať prednášky a mnohí ľudia z okolia ju chceli vidieť, aby spoznali ženu, ktorá má elektrickú energiu na dvore.
I'll have to tell you about when I was at Harvard.
A musím vám povedať, Harvard, musím vám povedať príbeh o tom, ako som bol na Harvarde.
The people who made the EKG machines, electrocardiographs,
A ľudia, ktorí vytvárali tie elektrokardiografy, teda tie stroje na srdce,
I was there for only 1 month for a cardiology class.
Kvôli predmetu o srdciach som tam bol len 1 mesiac.
And this company that makes the EKG machines was going to give a banquet to this class because they would be good people to buy their machine.
A práve tá firma, ktorá vyrábala tie kardiostimulátory, tak robila práve takú party práve pre doktorov, lebo vedeli, že oni to budú potom ponúkať.
We had 50 in the class,
Mali sme 50 tých ľudí
amphitheater,
v triede
and I was in the back row.
a ja som sedel niekde vzadu v zadných sedačkách.
A young doctor next to me was from University of Southern California, and they knew Adventist alumni.
A mladý muž vedľa mňa, ktorý sedel, bol z univerzity v Kalifornii a on poznal adventistov.
So the doctor in charge to give us our lectures, he said, now you have a choice of steak or lobster.
Takže bola tam možnosť, prišiel nejaký doktor a mohli ste si vybrať steak alebo lobster.
How many want lobster?
Koľký z vás chcú
Hands
lobstera,
went up.
teda kraba?
How many want steak? Hands
Koľký z
went up.
vás chcú steak?
My hand didn't go up either time.
A moja ruka nevyšla hore ani raz.
The boy next to me poked me.
A ten vedľa mňa, do mňa šťuchol.
He said, I know your hand didn't go up because you're vegetarian.
A ja som si istý, že ty určite zachováš to vegetariánstvo.
So at the end of the class,
Na konci toho
he grabbed me by my coat sleeve.
tej prednášky chytil ma za
Those,
rimec, za rukav.
those days, all Harvard people were dressed in suits.
V tých dňoch každý z nich z toho Harvardu mal na sebe oblek.
He grabbed me by my coat sleeve and dragged me down the steps right in front of the professor.
A tak ma chytil za ten rukáv a stiahol ma dole k profesorovi dopredu.
And he says to the Dr. Levine, the professor,
A tak povedal tomu doktorovi Levinovi, profesorovi,
top cardiologist,
ten jeden z najhlavnejších kardiologov,
he says, Dr. Scharffenberg, a vegetarian, can't we have a vegetarian plate for him?
tento doktor Scharffenberg je vegetarián, či môžeme mať pre neho vegetariánsky tanier?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Samozrejme, není problém.
So I had to go.
Tak som musel ísť.
I didn't plan to go.
Ja som neplánoval, že pôjdem na tú party, ale...
And there's everybody standing around with a cocktail.
A tak všetci tam stáli s tým koktejlom v ruke.
I wouldn't even hold a cup of orange juice.
Ja som ani nedržal šálku pomarančového džusu.
I didn't want anyone to see me holding a glass.
Ja nechcel som, aby nikto ma videl, že vôbec držím nejaký pohár v ruke.
But I was worried about that meal.
Ale trošku som sa obával o to jedlo.
I saw a lady come out from the kitchen.
Vyšla pani z kuchyne,
She was director of the kitchen.
bola riaditeľkou tej kuchyne
I went up to her and I said, now I'm the one who asked for the vegetarian plate.
a povedal som jej, ja som ten, ktorý sa pýtal o ten vegetariánsky tanier.
She said, I didn't know anything about it.
Ale ja o tom nič neviem.
But we can give you a vegetarian plate, no problem.
My ti dáme vám vegetariánske jedlo, nebojte sa.
But I need to know where you're going to sit so I know where to bring the vegetarian plate.
Ale musím vedieť, že kde budete sedieť, aby som vám ten tanier mohla priniesť.
Come with me into the dining room.
Takže poďte so mnou do kuchyne.
So I went in.
Tak som išiel.
There was a round table in the corner.
Bol tam taký okrúhly stôl.
She said, I want you to sit right there.
Chcem, aby ste tuto sedeli.
No problem.
V jedálni, pardon, nie v kuchyni, ale v jedálni.
I found out it was the speaker's table.
A dozvedel som sa, že to bol stôl pre rečníkov.
All the big shots were there.
Všetci tí hlavní
Dr. Levine, our professor.
Doktor Levine, náš profesor.
His nephew, Dr. Herbert Levine.
Jeho zaťko.
The president of the EKG machine was there.
Bol tam aj prezident z tých prístrojov kardiovaskulárnych.
There was an Italian cardiologist there.
Bol tam hlavný kardiológ.
Lady cardiologist.
Všetci papaláši tam boli.
And then I was sitting in the corner.
A ja som tam sedel v tom rohu.
The waiter came over.
A prišla čašnička.
How many want lobster?
Koľko chcete lobstra?
How many want steak?
Koľko chcete steak?
What was I to do back there in the corner?
Čo som mal tam vzadu v rohu robiť?
Vegetarian plate.
Tak sekol na ňu a povedal, že chcem vegetariánsky tanier.
Everybody looked at me.
Každý
I
sa na
was
mňa
so
pozrel.
embarrassed.
Bol som tak...
1 minute later,
nepríjemne som sa cítil. Jedna pani prišla.
another waiter came.
Potom prišla ďalšia čašnička.
He didn't know the other waiter had already gotten the message.
Tá pani vôbec nevedela, že iná čašnička tam už
How
bola.
many want lobster?
Koľko chcete lobstra?
How many want steak?
Koľko steak?
Vegetarian plate.
Vegetariánsky tanier.
Everybody looks at me.
A každý sa na mňa díval.
And when I said vegetarian plate, oh, yes, yes. He raised his voice very high. Make sure everybody heard. Vegetarian plate.
A tak niekto tam začal nahlas rozprávať. Áno, aby každý počul, aby každý vedel. Jasné, tá čašnička, že jasné, vegetariánsky tanier, samozrejme.
I was so embarrassed. Why did the Lord put me through this?
Veľmi nepríjemne som sa cítil. Prečo ma Pán Boh priviedol do takej situácie?
The next day, we were making rounds at the women's hospital.
A na druhý deň sme boli v ženskej nemocnici.
We had just 8 in our group.
A boli sme 8 v skupine.
I was letting my classmates listen to this lady's heart murmur first.
A bol som ten, ktorý prvý počúval to srdce tej ženy.
The Italian professor who was at the table that night.
A taliansky profesor, ktorý bol tam pri tom stole ten večer,
He came over to me.
prišiel ku mne.
He said, "What school did you graduate from?"
V ktorej škole si skončil, graduoval?
College of Medical Evangelists.
Univerzita medicínskej evangelizácie.
And he didn't say anymore.
A viac sa nepýtal.
Then we went upstairs to look at the new kidney dialysis machines.
Potom sme išli hore na poschodie, pozerali sme na aparatúru na dialýzu.
They were small little boxes.
A boli tam malé krabice.
We had 50 in the class.
A nás bolo 50.
I stood to one side, letting my classmates look first.
A povedal som jednému kolegovi, nech ide on prvý.
The Italian professor came over again.
Taliansky profesor prišiel znovu za mnou.
He said, I noticed how you ate last night.
Všimol som si, ako si včera jedol.
How could he not have noticed?
Ako si to nemohol všimnúť, teda, samozrejme.
He said, you know, that's the way all of us should eat.
A vraví, no presne toto je spôsob, akým všetci by mali jesť.
And we got started talking about nutrition.
A začali sme sa rozprávať o výžive,
Heart disease.
o srdcovo-cievnych ochoreniach.
Pretty soon the whole class was standing around listening.
A za chvíľu celá trieda bola okolo a počúvali.
I understood why the Lord had me do that
A
night.
vtedy som porozumel, prečo musel som prejsť takým nepríjemnou situáciou v ten
This
deň.
is a way to get the message out to Harvard.
Lebo toto je spôsob, ako dostať správu práve na Harvard.
Well, I have some pictures I want to show you in just a few minutes.
I remember that Harvard is doing lots of studies,
What's
health
that?
studies. Harvard is recently doing lots of health studies.
Oh, they are. They are.
Yeah. A som len rozprával,
Ja.
že Harvard robí teraz veľa tých zdravotných štúdií.
I want to tell you about another
Áno.
experience.
Ešte mám jednu príbeh.
I want to show the pictures of the Philippines.
Rád by som ukázal obrázky z Filipín.
I was the first one to take students from Loma Linda overseas.
Takže vlastne som bol jeden z prvých študentov z Loma Lindy, ktorý bol v zahraničí.
I took students to a little island.
Zobral som na malý ostrov študentov.
Počujete ho?
No,
They can't see it over there.
tak ja idem sem. Dobre, takže počujete ma aj? Aj vidíte, dúfam, cez mňa.
Now,
Okay, maybe we should switch. Dobre.
I had a problem because I was taking nutrition majors over there.
A mal som problém, pretože mojím zameraním bola výživa.
And Bill Osmondson was my leader of the group.
A Bill Onsisten bol vedúcim skupiny.
He didn't know what malnutrition looked like.
A on vôbec nikdy nevidel, ako vyzerá nedostatok výživy v organizme.
I pointed to that little girl over there.
Tak som poukázal na jedno dievča tam ďalej.
I said, tell me, how old do you think she is?
A pýtal som sa, povedz mi, koľko má rokov?
7.
Povedal 7.
I said, I think if you ask her, she'll say she's 9.
A myslím si, že ak sa jej opýtaš, povie ti, že má 9 rokov.
We asked her and she was 9.
A pýtali sme sa a mala 9 rokov.
She was short for her age.
Bola nízka na ten svoj vek.
So we went to this little village. We had to find a village where there's malnutrition under 5 years of age and cure the problem.
Takže my sme boli poslaní do tej dediny a mali sme nájsť deti, ktoré boli slabo vyživované a vyriešiť ten problém.
The first man we met over there was an Adventist.
Muž prvého, ktorý sme tam stretli, bol adventista.
Let's put him back again.
Trošku sa vrátim v príbehu.
We'll come back to the east one later. But this man who was an Adventist was introduced himself as the quack doctor.
A kvak?
Yeah, not real doctor.
Aha, takže ten adventista, on o sebe prehlasoval, že bol taký ľudový liečiteľ.
He told everybody they had high blood pressure.
Každému hovoril, že majú vysoký krvný tlak.
He had no sphygmomanometer,
Vôbec nemal ten prístroj,
no
na to,
stethoscope.
takže nevedel to odmerať.
Now we could either fight him or join him.
Takže mohli sme sa buď proti nemu bojovať, alebo mohli sa s ním spolčiť, dať dokopy.
We joined him.
Ale my sme sa dali dokopy
We
s ním.
bought a sphig and a stethoscope, showed him how to use it.
Kúpili sme ten tlakomer a ukázali sme mu, ako ho používať.
He found out nobody had high blood pressure.
A zistil, že nikto nemal vysoký krvný tlak.
And our biggest problem was toiletry.
Ale najväčším problémom boli záchody.
They didn't like outhouses.
Nemali radi naše domčeky.
Because when the wood got rotten, somebody fall through, he gets a bad nickname.
Lebo keď prehnilo drevo, tak niekto tam padol a získal prezývku kvôli tomu incidentu. Takže,
Anyhow, we had to do all kinds of studies over there about that.
takže museli sme aj rôzne druhy štúdií robiť.
But we had to dig our own hole for our outhouse.
Ale
A hole, just a hole.
pre naše vecká vonkajšie sme museli vykopať vlastnú jamu.
But there was a snake there.
Ale bol tam had.
And we said, don't tell the girls, I won't use it.
Nepovedzte to dievčatám, lebo ho nebudú používať.
So we had to dig another hole.
Takže vykopali sme ešte ďalšiu jamu.
They dug a hole where there was 2 branches coming out so the girls could sit nicely on the branches.
Takže takú, aby 2 konáre mohli ísť naprieč a dievčatá mohli tam pekne sedieť.
We wanted to make the branches smooth, comfortable.
Takže chceli sme tie vetvy mať hladké, aby to boli pohodlné.
So we took our bolo knives and made them clean.
Takže sme zobrali nôž a vyčistili sme tie dosky.
But the problem was this tree produced a lot of sap.
Ale problém bol, že ten strom produkoval veľa miazgy.
And you get up from there and all these strings hanging onto you.
Takže stanete z toho a zrazu také tie miazgavé veci idú vám z nôh, trčia.
You took toilet paper there and there's more strings.
A keď zoberiete toaletný papier, tak ešte viacej toho dá mať.
It was terrible.
Bolo to hrozné.
Okay, now let's start from the beginning of these pictures.
Dobre, ale poďme na začiatok, na ten obrázok, ktorý tam je.
Let's go way in the beginning. All right, there we are coming into the Coconut Island village.
Takže
100 homes.
my sme tam prišli na ten ostrov.
Okay.
Coconut ostrov.
Now we
Kokosový
measured
ostrov.
people height.
Merali sme výšku tých ľudí.
And they should have been as tall as where that ruler is, based on the well-fed kids in the Makati district of Manila, the wealthy district.
Aha, takže a porovnávali sme ich vlastne s výškou bohatých detí z Makati oblasti.
Next one. And here's the nipa hut we rented.
Toto je nipa
hut. You have bamboo strips with enough space between to drop their garbage, and the pigs where they took care of the garbage.
Takže oni tam mali také latky, tam vyhadzovali smeti a to, čo padlo, tak potom sa na tom krmili prasiatka.
Okay, next slide.
Ďalší.
And Raylene Ward, she knew you should exercise, so she wanted to exercise with an exercise gym outfit, but we told her exercise here is a different plan. You bring your water in.
Takže ona vedela, že má cvičiť, dokonca si aj náčinie na cvičenie doniesla, ale my sme jej povedali, že je lepšie cvičiť tak, že bude nosiť vodu.
This Indian girl, a nurse from America Indian, she wanted to come. She wasn't one of our students, but we let her join.
Bola to sestrička, ktorá študovala, ale dovolili sme jej, aby prišla s nami na tie Filipíny.
She was teaching all the kids songs, Christian songs.
A učila decká kresťanské piesne.
Next. And we had them bring in their specimens for worms to see how many worms they had.
A mali doniesť aj nejakú vzorku worms from the ground?
Intestinal worms.
Takže mali doniesť dokonca aj vzorku tých črevných červov.
Now, one boy didn't have a specimen, so he got half of the other boys, so he had a specimen.
Aha, takže jeden z nich nemal vzorku, tak si dal polovičku, si zobral od kamaráta.
All those people had at least 3 kinds of worms.
A každý z tých ľudí mal minimálne 3 druhy červov.
They had worms that came up through the feet.
Mali červy, ktoré vstupovali cez chodidlá do organizmu.
Now we had a shoe problem. We had to figure out what to do about shoes.
Bol tam problém s topánkami, s obuvou. Museli toto vyriešiť.
Now we were building our own field station.
Vybudovali sme vlastnú stanicu.
Loma Linda Field Station.
Toto je Loma Linda, nemocnica.
We put it right next door to our church so the pastor could have a place to stay. When we left.
Nebola to nemocnica, taký shelter, ale bolo to hneď vedľa zboru, aby kazatelia, ktorí tam prídu, mohli mať kde prenocovať.
Now, the prisoners in the jail made these toilets.
Väzni vyrábali takéto záchody.
It cost us $1 a piece.
Stalo to asi $1 jeden za kus.
But we bought a whole lot of those for the villagers.
A my sme kúpili veľa z nich pre dedičanov.
We had a toilet building contest.
A mali sme dokonca súťaž v stavaní záchodov.
The first prize was a watch.
A prvá cena bola hodinky.
Nobody had a watch in the village.
V dedine nemal nikto hodinky.
When we got there first, the leader of the village said, we're going to have all the people come together tomorrow for you to talk to.
Takže keď sme tam prišli, tak šéf tej dediny povedal, že na druhý deň prídu všetci ľudia, aby ste mohli k ním hovoriť.
And Bill said, what time?
A Bill sa pýtal, že o koľkej.
They said 8 o'clock.
Povedali, že o 8.
Nobody had a watch except us.
Nikto nemal hodinky, iba ten
And
šéf.
then Bill said, what time should we stop?
A Bill sa pýtal, že kedy máme prestať rozprávať.
When the sun goes down.
A on hovoril, že keď slnko zapadne.
Now, our students had been taught how to give an hour's lecture.
Naši študenti boli vychovávaní, ako dať lekciu.
But what do you do when you have them all day?
Ale čo majú robiť, keď to majú robiť celý deň?
Okay, next.
Ďalší.
Now, they weren't getting enough to eat.
Nemali dostatok vecí na jedenie.
They had coconut,
Mali kokos,
they had rice,
mali rýžu
they had tofu,
a tofu
and they had fish.
a ryby.
They had little swamp cabbage,
Mali malé také kapusty,
some vitamin A and C.
trošku vitamínu A a C,
They weren't getting enough.
ale nedostávali toho dosť.
So we had Saturday night programs.
Takže mali v sobotu večer sme mali program,
No electricity.
žiadna elektrina,
We had kerosene lanterns.
mali obyčajné také karuselové lampy
And I'd go around and say, do you eat this much or that much?
a pýtal sa, koľko jedávate, toľko, alebo toľko jedávate.
That's when I was skinnier.
Vtedy som bol taký chudší.
All right, next slide.
Ďalší.
This is the Indian girl plowing with a carabao, pulling the plow.
Takže toto je jedna dievča, indiánske dievča, ktorá vlastne orie.
We had to teach gardening to the public school.
Na verejných školách sme ich museli vyučovať to záhradničenie.
As a result, the governor of the province made a rule all schools must teach gardening.
Ako výsledkom vláda urobila pravidlo, že všetky školy musia vyučovať
I
záhradničenie.
ran out of money when I was there.
Keď som tam bol, tak došli mi peniaze,
So I wrote a letter and sent out 80 letters to my friends.
takže napísal som 80 listov mojim priateľom
We plastered the front and the back with the most beautiful Filipino stamps.
a samozrejme dali sme tu najkrajšiu filipínsku známku na obálku.
We got $4,000 back.
Vrátilo sa nám $4,000 z tohto.
Okay, next slide.
Ďalší.
We thought the bamboo was a little hard to sleep on.
Mysleli sme si, že bambusové tyče sú tvrdé na to, aby sme na nich spali.
So we got foam rubber mats.
Tak sme zohnali také mäkké madrace.
Okay, next slide. There's the village.
Toto je dedina.
Okay, next slide. Some little children by our NEPA hut.
Takže deti.
There's Bill Osmondson. There's the girl that we had. Here's the medical technologist and his wife who did all the stool studies to see how many worms, what kind of worms they had.
Tí dvaja tamto sú, on bol taký lekárenský technik a oni vlastne vytvárali rôzne nástroje na to, aby mohli sledovať rôzne druhy tých červov.
And here they're bringing the water in, the children.
Takým spôsobom deti nosili vodu.
Okay. We started cooking with kerosene pots.
Začali sme
Or
variť
charcoal pots.
variť
Then later kerosene.
na drevenom uhli.
Charcoal pot. Okay, that's the Indian girl.
Toto je indiánske dievča.
These are the old time outhouses they had, and the boards got rotten, people would fall through. They didn't like to use outhouses.
Takže toto sú tie staré záchody. Neradi ich používali, pretože tie dosky dokázali zhniť.
I had to be judged as who won the prize for the outhouse.
On bol vtedy aj dokonca sudcom, alebo
You had to have a path going up to it with flowers.
keď robili tie súťaže ohľadne veciek, tak on to hodnotil,
Next
že
slide.
ktorý je lepší a ktorý je horší.
We had to build our own outhouse.
A museli sme si postaviť vlastný dom
And Raylin Ward was assigned the job to put in the framework.
a jeden pán bol zodpovedný za to, aby sa tam urobila
Next slide.
konštrukcia.
She didn't know how to weave the palm fronds.
Ona nevedela, ako pliecť, viazať tie
So
palmové.
we had a Filipino girl come out from the college to show her how to do it.
A tak prišla jedno
Next.
filipínske dievča a to nám ukázalo, ako to robiť.
There she is showing her how to do it.
To je, ona ukazuje
Okay.
nám, ako to robiť.
And here's the elder of our church who got third prize. He got a shovel. The second, third prize was shovels. The only shovels in the village.
Shovels.
Shovels.
Like the one
Yeah.
shovel. A on vyhral 3. miesto a on použil vlastne lopatu, lebo mal jediný lopatu v celej dedine.
Okay, next. And there's our outhouse going up.
Toto je tiež jeden z našich záchodov.
There it is, finished.
A toto je dokončený záchod.
Not too bad for a girl.
Nie veľmi zlé pre na dievča.
Okay, next.
Ďalšie.
Now, they wash their clothes in dirty water.
V špinavej vode si prali veci.
We check the water, is typhus, typhoid, all kinds of bad bacteria in the water.
Zistili sme, že v tej vode je hrozne veľa tyfusov, baktérií, rôznych
We
druhov.
had a minister own some property up above it. Eventually, we wanted to get water from his good place down to the village.
Takže mali sme jedného kazateľa, ktorý žil nad dedinou a snažili sme sa dotiahnuť dobrú vodu práve do dediny, takýmto spôsobom.
Here we are putting up our house,
Toto je tu sme my, ako sme začali budovať záchody.
bringing in bamboo from the forest.
Nosili sme tyče bambusové z lesa.
Bill Osmond was a good builder.
Takže Bill Austin bol dobrým staviteľom.
And here we are, field station is done.
A takto dokončili tú stanicu
Next slide.
Loma Linda.
Loma Linda University Field Station, Barrio Octa Polillo, Quezon, Republic of Philippines.
Tak,
Okay.
prečítal.
Coconut Island.
A toto sú kokosové,
Okay.
je to kokosový ostrov.
Safest way to drink water is through a coconut.
Takže bezpečný spôsob, ako piť vodu, je cez tých kokosových kokosov.
So we use a lot of coconuts.
Takže my sme tiež používali hodne tých kokosov.
But we never
kiwi.
did learn how to climb the coconut tree.
Ale nikdy sme sa nenaučili, ako liesť na strom.
Okay. Next slide. Again, some more. Height.
Takže merali výšku tých detí.
Next. Looking for lice and fleas and fly things.
Hľadali vši, či majú akým
Raylan
spôsobom.
Ward, gardening.
Toto je zahradničenie.
We actually had a good-looking garden.
Celkom pekná záhradnička.
Saturday night program.
To je program v sobotu.
There's our garden.
A
Looks
toto je
pretty
naša
good.
záhrada. Celkom dobre vyzerá.
Okay. Some more. All right, some more.
Ďalšie.
Now, here's malnutrition in the Philippines in those days.
Takto vyzerá podvyživené dieťa. Na
This is
Filipínoch.
kwashiorkor,
Toto je kašioko.
low implantation of the hair, muscle around the buttocks has disappeared.
A tie svaly na zadnici akože úplne vymiznú.
They get a pellagra-like sign, skin dermatitis. Next.
Majú nejakú dermatídu na pokožke.
Pot belly.
A veľké brucho.
Next.
Na dupe.
Next. Low implantation of the hair. Next one.
Takže aj krátke
We
vlasy.
taught the women how to cook,
Učili sme ženy, ako variť,
how to dry food, how to make things that they could sell to buy food.
ako vyrábať veci, aby mohli predávať a kúpiť si za to jedlo.
This was a Dr. Velez, a Catholic physician who had
Toto je katolícky
a
doktor.
hospital just for malnourished kids in Cebu. We took our children to, our young people to see it.
Takže deti, ktoré boli podvyžené, sme brali k nemu, aby si
We
ich prezrel.
taught them how to dry the food,
Ukázali sme im, ako pripravovať jedlo.
okay? And businesses supported financially each bed,
Takže toto je podnikateľmi podporovaná nemocnica.
okay? And the whole family comes to treat the patient, so you have to have houses for the whole family.
A keď sa týkalo ako liečby tých pacientov, tak celá rodina chodila.
There's Dr.
museli
Velez, the
niekde
Catholic
ich
physician.
ubytovať. Toto je doktor a ten katolícky
There's his
doktor.
hospital.
Toto je jeho nemocnica.
Here's vitamin A deficiency, eye problem.
Takto sa vyzerá nedostatok vitamínu A. Áno,
And you
Ačko.
see the pigmented hand that child had.
A vidíte
kwashiorkor.
tu ten pigment na ruke.
Okay, next.
Nedostatok vitamínu A.
Lack of muscle in the buttocks.
Nedostatok svalov na
That's a typical grin, malnutrition grin, lack of food.
to je typicky podvyžené dieťa.
Okay, next. You
Ďalšie
can see the pigmentation.
pigmentácia tam chýba. Hej.
We left in the rain.
Sme odchádzali za dažďa.
No sunshine, no moon, no stars, and they get 2 hours away to the main island. How they do it without any compass or anything, I don't know.
Takže za dažďa vlastne odchádzali z ostrova a prešli na ďalší 2 hodiny. Vôbec nevedia, akým
Next
spôsobom,
slide.
ale došli na...
There's the minister of health. We drew his blood, did cholesterol on him.
Toto je minister, zdravotný misionár.
Okay.
A testovali jeho cholesterol,
Oh, one more.
krvný tlak.
I had to go in through the window because there's too much luggage on the stairway.
Takže to je John, museli ísť po batožinu. do auta.
That's how we looked after 2 hours trip across to get Main Island.
Takto sme vyzerali po 2 hodinách cestovania.
I think we can turn that off now.
A môžeme to teraz aj
Well, what
vypnúť.
happened?
Čo sa stalo?
I met Bill Osmondson when he came with 4 pages typewritten of instructions what he was to do.
Stretol som Billa a on mal 4-stranový zoznam vecí, ktoré má urobiť.
He was have this program with evangelistic potential.
Bol v polovičke toho programu, ktorý mal taký evangelistický potenciál.
We organized young people's clubs.
Začali sme robiť kluby mladých detí.
As a result, 26 young people were baptized.
A ako výsledok 26 mladých ľudí bolo pokrstených.
A year later, the village next door had a new Adventist church.
O rok neskôr vedľajšia dedina mala ďalší nový adventistický zbor.
A friend of mine was over there on vacation just recently.
Môj priateľ tam nedávno bol na dovolenke.
60% of those islanders are now baptized Seventh-day Adventists.
60% tých ľudí na ostrove sú pokrstení adventisti 7.
Now, I
dňa.
think God was in that program.
A ja si myslím, že Boh bol v tom programe.
I've had so many experiences where I am sure God was in it.
A mám hrozne veľa skúseností, kde som si istý, že Pán Boh tam bol
When
s
we
nami.
do God's work, winning souls, He works with us.
Keď pracujeme, teda hľadáme duše pre Krista, tak Pán Boh je vtedy s nami.
That's the main thing each one of us should be doing, is working for souls.
To je vlastne hlavná náplň našej činnosti, ktorú by sme mali robiť. Hľadať ľudí pre Krista.
Okay.
OK. Takže ďakujeme za pozornosť.